But before we dive too deep into that, let's take a look at this guy real quick. This is original Broly from the original Dragon Ball Broly movie, but what makes this Broly action figure so special is this is the SH Figuarts event exclusive. We're gonna see how these new Broly stack up against this limited edition one. Like, this is so hard to come by nowadays. My brother ordered this as soon as they went live to order these. This dude jumped all over because I just see event exclusive. I can't remember which event this came out for, but as soon as it was available to be pre-ordered and purchased outside of the event, my brother jumped all over. Let's get this guy out of the box and do just a real quick overview of this figure. Real quick. So as far as likeness goes, he looks pretty much spot on to what Broly was back then. Like, just a huge, jacked being. Like, Broly was always jacked, and they over-jacked him in this scenario here. As far as his facial appearance, for the most part, it looks exactly like Broly did. His hair isn't as defined as what the newer figures are. It does have the green, that green that Broly always has been known for, having that green kind of aura about him. Don't know if you guys can tell in the video. It might look more of like a weird yellow, but it's like a greenish, a light green yellow for his hair. This is the exact clothing that Broly had on back then in that movie. As far as the articulation goes, he articulates like this thing. It doesn't look like it's very mobile because his shoulders are just jacked. Those things are huge. But even back then, the articulation for this figure was great, because at this point they had already moved over to the new 2.0 bodies with the dual hinging torsos. Now, with all that being said, how does the original Broly stack up against the new full power Broly? Well, full power Broly is a lot more solidly built. I do not feel that this guy is going to get hurt from taking a drop, whereas this guy, he doesn't seem as solid as he is. I can tell that he's a little more hollow inside. I can tell that he's made up of older plastic that isn't as durable as the plastic that this guy is made of. I don't feel that this guy is hollow, whereas I kind of can tell that this guy is. One of the biggest differences is how they designed his sash and his pelt. The newer Brolys have more of a free-flowing pelt. This way you don't lose out on any of the articulation because it can move and get out of the way so that you can pose and articulate the figure without having to worry about it getting in the way. Whereas the original full power Broly, he doesn't get that. These are a lot more static pieces. They're hard plastic. They're not going to move all that much, which could easily limit range of motion, as well as it just being a little more fragile and brittle just because it's that hard plastic versus the plastic they use for the newer Brolys. So we touched on this with base Broly as far as being back heavy. This guy seems to just be, in general, top heavy, period, because his shoulders and his chest are massive, and what they don't seem to have compensated for in that is this guy's foot size. So with such a small foot, that is going to limit how easily you can pose this guy and actually get him to stay up. Like, he's heavy all over, so you really need a nice sturdy base to keep this guy from falling, and they didn't quite give him that because his feet aren't made for that. So when it comes to Broly, you can tell that they have always put extra care in making sure that they did as well by Broly as they could with these figures, because even at the beginning they did their best to capture what Broly was, and that was a monster. Like, the dude was a complete genetic freak. We're talking about a guy who had muscles on muscles, who did not lose any range of motion or any speed by gaining such muscles. So to try to encompass that into a figure, you could tell that over the years they've gotten better and better at doing that, because it's not to say that this original Broly wasn't great, because I mean, this was one of the first figures I had ever seen this scale, this size, that looked as good as it did. But when it comes to his shoulders, they did get the proportions wrong on this figure. Broly has always been jacked, but he's always been proportionate. Even when his shoulders got massive, the rest of his body scaled to size as well. And in this figure, his shoulders are so big you can't even see his traps. Like, his shoulders tower over his traps. The peak of his shoulders actually rest on his nose line, which is just ridiculously over the top. But you can see, as they've done more of these figures, you can see where his shoulders actually round into itself a whole lot better, and they don't look as disproportionate as say this guy does, because you just tell that that's not a normal shoulder. Whereas over here, that detail and the rounding of his shoulder just seems to fit his scale so much better. You can tell that they've grown a lot in that area. Even when you go down to Wrath Broly, his proportion is so much better. You know that he has to have a massive chest, and they kept those shoulders proportionate to that so that you'd also get the rest of his Saiyan armor on there as well. You can even look back on the attention to detail in the faces of these figures from back then to now. It's not to say that that face is off or is bad by any stretch of the imagination, but there's just so much more details in 2019 than they were doing back in years prior. You can also even look to their hair. Like, there's no detail or anything in the hair, whereas now you see those extra flowing lines that you see in the Saiyan's hair, because their hair isn't just static sharp triangles, it's flowing hair. You can even see how much they've grown within a few months. If you look at the hair on Super Saiyan Broly versus what they had for Full Power Broly, there is a huge difference in detail. Full Power Broly, his hair was just that solid lime green, no highlights, no definition, no detail. Whereas Super Saiyan Broly, you can see all the different highlights, and you guys may not be able to tell it, but there's an undertone of darker yellow highlighted with those lighter tones of yellow in there. You can see that it's more defined, more detailed. It just looks better than that solid green piece of hair that has no depth detail to it at all, other than the lines that they put through.
And the rest of the detail in the paint job looks amazing too, because if you look at his arms, the arms just have so much more detail just because of how much better of a paint job that they did. Like, that paint job just makes all the difference in the world to make that muscle really pop and have more depth and look realistic compared to Full Power Broly. Well, yeah, it looks great, but the paint just isn't as pronounced. You can't see it as well. They just did a much better job with Super Saiyan Broly's paint job, and it's because they got some real competition out here now, and we're going to talk more about that in another video. But because of that, they have made a huge jump in what they're doing with their detail. And to compare both of these guys to legendary Super Saiyan Broly, it's a night and day difference with the paint job. There's just no way that it really compares to what they're doing now to what they did back then. I mean, they had some paint on there, it had to show some depth and detail, but it's nothing like what it is now. They just do a much better job.
So that leads us to the most important question of this video, and that is, which Broly is the best Broly? So at number 3, I would have to put the legendary Super Saiyan Broly. Overall, I give the figure a 4. It's a great figure. It just has some issues that keep it from aging as well as it should, like the lack of detail in the hair and in the paint job in general. So much more could have been done for this figure to just make its definition and detail look better, but more than that, it was this guy's disproportionate shoulders that really hold it back. Broly's huge, he's jacked, but his shoulders aren't this big. I mean, his shoulders tower over his traps. These are the type of things that made it real easy to put Full Power Broly in second place with a 4.5. It's because they fixed a lot of those issues that legendary Super Saiyan Broly had. They added lines to his hair to give his hair more depth, and they did a much better job on his paint job, making his muscles pop and just stick out so much better. But most importantly, they got his proportions right. His shoulders don't look like two boulders sitting on the side of a neck. That to me does more than anything else, just making sure that his size and his scale is accurate to what it should be for the figure. Not just for him, but for the figure itself. Which brings us to the king of the Broly figures. Base form, Wrath, Super Saiyan Broly, hands down is better than both Full Power Broly and legendary Super Saiyan Broly combined in my book. And it's because they just did everything right. They saw all of their mistakes from the original Broly, they saw their mistakes from Full Power Broly, and they fixed all of them. The one big gripe that I said I had against this figure is that he was back heavy. Like, he does tend to topple backwards a lot more than other figures. But outside of that, I mean, everything else is great. The colors that they use to give him more depth and detail in his muscles, in his hair, especially his Super Saiyan hair. His Super Saiyan hair looks amazing. Like, they have all those extra highlights of yellow to make it just stand out so much more than legendary Super Saiyan Broly or Full Power Broly. And the proportions and scale are perfect. Even though compared to Goku and Vegeta he's huge, he's still the right size huge over them to make them look small but not completely dwarf them.
So without question, this guy gets a 5. And it's not just because he hits on all of our points that we need to make a good figure: the likeness, posability, articulation, durability, and accessories. Of course he gets those. But it's the fact that you can see the growth in this figure from the first Broly figure all the way to this one. They paid attention to all those little bits of detail that they needed to correct in each figure, and each time they took a step forward, making the figure better and better and better, adding more detail to him, getting his scale better, and all around just making Broly one of the best figures that they've made, just simply from paying attention to detail. So there we have it, all 3 Brolys wrapped up in one video. Let me know what you guys think about these Brolys. Do you agree with the order that I put them in? Or maybe it was a different order for you. Maybe Legendary Super Saiyan Broly is your favorite and you think he's the best of all 3. Or maybe Full Power Broly is your favorite. Let me know in the comment section below which one you like the best. Do you agree with my points on these figures? Do you disagree with my points? Whatever the case may be, leave a comment in the comment section below. I would love to hear from you and hear your thoughts on these figures. There are more to come. I have more figures already here. It's just a matter of getting the editing done for the reviews, but they are coming soon. Be on the lookout for those. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.